My name is Evelyn Hartwell. I'm 28 years old. And I need to get this off my chest, because even now, I'm still processing everything that happened. Some of my friends think I went too far. Others believe I didn't go far enough. Personally, I think I simply did what I had to do to protect myself. Ethan Carter and I had been together for 3 years. For the last year and a half, we lived together. From the outside, we looked solid. We had routines, shared groceries, weekend movie nights, future plans. But looking back now, I can see the cracks I kept pretending weren't there. Ethan had always been anxious. If I didn't text him back quickly enough, he'd become upset. He hated some of my male coworkers despite having never met them. At the time, I convinced myself it was because he cared. Love has a way of disguising red flags. Then one night in February, he said those 4 words nobody ever wants to hear. We need to talk. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at his phone. That bothered me immediately. I sat down beside him. What's wrong? He took a breath. I think we should take a break. I blinked. A break. I just need some space to figure things out. Then came the oldest excuse in history. It's not you. It's me. But context matters. 1 week earlier, he'd casually mentioned that his ex-girlfriend, Lauren Mitchell, had moved back to town. He'd tried to sound casual. Oh, Lauren got a job here. Isn't that weird? Something about his tone had felt strange. Now suddenly he wanted space. I wasn't stupid. Still, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. A part of me was exhausted from constantly trying to keep everything together, so I simply nodded. Okay. For the first time all evening, Ethan finally looked up. His eyes widened. That's it. You said you need space. I'll give you space. He looked genuinely disappointed by my reaction, as though he'd expected a fight, as though he wanted reassurance. Instead, he got acceptance. He moved out the following week. He left half his belongings behind. Don't worry, he said while carrying boxes. It's just a break. Sûr, just a break. Except, reality doesn't pause, because someone's feelings are confused. Our lease certainly didn't. Both our names were on it. 8 months remained. I contacted our landlord immediately. He reviewed the paperwork and calmly explained the situation. I don't care who pays, he told me. As long as the rent gets paid, both tenants are responsible. He pointed to the lease agreement. If either of us wanted out, we'd both need to sign termination paperwork and pay the associated fees. I paid the first month's rent myself, not because I wanted to, because I refused to destroy my credit over somebody else's uncertainty. Then I mailed Ethan a certified letter. Inside was a copy of our lease, with his financial responsibilities highlighted. 2 weeks later, Instagram confirmed exactly what I already suspected. There they were, Ethan and Lauren, at my favorite restaurant, the same restaurant where he'd celebrated my birthday the previous year. The caption read, "Sometimes, life brings people back together." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Oddly enough, I didn't cry. I simply took a screenshot. Not because I wanted revenge, because documentation had become my new survival skill. I texted him, "Hey, I sent you paperwork regarding the lease. Since you've moved out, you still owe your share." Hours later, he replied, "Can't this wait? I'm busy. The rent is due on the 1st. I answered, "You are legally responsible." Nothing. No response. Weeks passed. He ignored my messages. He refused to meet. He refused to sign the lease termination agreement. So I documented everything. Every text. Every unanswered message. Every photograph with Lauren. Every refusal to cooperate. By the 2nd month, he still hadn't paid. I used an online legal template and mailed him a formal demand letter. This time, I sent it to his parents' address. The reaction came quickly. He called me screaming, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I remained calm. "I'm following the agreement we both signed. You know, I can't afford this." "Then come sign the paperwork." Silence. The next day, he showed up, furious. His face was red, his eyes full of resentment. He signed the termination documents without even sitting down. As he reached the door, he turned around dramatically. "I can't believe you're being this cold." I looked at him quietly. "You wanted a break?" Then I added softly, "Breaks have consequences." His expression hardened. For a moment, I saw something strange flash across his face. Not anger, not regret, fear. At the time, I didn't understand it. Months later, after Ethan signed the paperwork, I thought that chapter of my life had finally ended. I was wrong. The lease issue wasn't the only thing left behind. He had abandoned a surprising amount of belongings. Winter jackets, old electronics, books, boxes of random things he'd insisted he couldn't live without. Then suddenly he acted as though they didn't exist. The lease agreement contained a clause regarding abandoned property. State law required proper notice, so I coordinated with our landlord. A formal notice was mailed to Ethan's parents' address, giving him time to retrieve everything. He ignored it. Not a text, not a phone call, nothing. I spent an entire Saturday boxing everything carefully. Part of me expected him to show up at the last minute. He never did. Eventually, I donated everything to a local men's shelter. They provided itemized receipts. I kept copies. By then, documentation had become second nature. A few days later, Lauren herself texted me. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Her message was short. "Ethan said you gave away his things." I stared at the screen. Then I replied, "He was notified legally. He chose not to collect them." She never answered. For the first time since our breakup, I felt strangely free. Spring arrived. And so did someone unexpected. Nathan Reed, 31 years old. A high school history teacher. We met through mutual friends. Unlike Ethan, Nathan communicated. He listened. He never played games. The first time we disagreed about something, he actually sat down and talked. Instead of withdrawing emotionally, I remember driving home afterward and realizing how abnormal my previous relationship had become. Peace felt unfamiliar, but beautiful. By May, I was genuinely happy again. For the first time in months, I wasn't surviving. I was living. Then June happened. The first text arrived on a Tuesday. "Hey, how have you been?" I ignored it. Another message appeared. "I've been thinking about us." Then, I made a mistake. I stared at the screen for several minutes. Finally, I sent one response. "I'm seeing someone else now. I wish you the best." 20 minutes later, someone began pounding on my front door. It was almost 10 at night. My stomach dropped. I looked through the peephole. Ethan. Mascara wasn't running down his face like in movies, but he looked terrible. Unshaven. Exhausted. Broken. I opened the door with the security chain still attached. "Ethan." His eyes immediately filled with tears. "You can't just move on." I blinked. "It's been 6 months. We were together for 3 years. We were." I agreed. He shook his head desperately. "I said we needed a break. Not a breakup." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A break where you immediately moved back in with Lauren." He froze. His expression changed. Not guilt. Something else. Panic. "Things aren't what you think." I crossed my arms. "Whatever happened with Lauren has nothing to do with me." He started crying. Real crying. Not manipulative tears. Broken tears. "Lauren left me." "Isail, I'm sorry that happened." "No, you're not." "You're right." I answered, honestly. "I'm not." At that moment, Nathan came downstairs. He had been sleeping upstairs, still half awake. He stepped beside me. Immediately, Ethan's face changed. The pain in his eyes turned into fury. "You're replacing me already." Nathan remained calm. "Sit. You need to leave." Something inside Ethan snapped. Suddenly he started screaming. He accused me of ruining his life. He blamed me for the lease, for donating his belongings, for moving on, for everything. I pulled out my phone. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." He kicked the front step before finally storming away. That should have been the end. Instead, It became the beginning. By morning, I had 47 messages. Apologies. Threats. Declarations of love. Accusation. I screenshotted every single one, then blocked him. Unfortunately, blocking didn't stop him. He started showing up everywhere. My gym. My favorite coffee shop. The grocery store. At first I convinced myself it was coincidence. Nathan wasn't convinced. Evie, he said gently one night. This isn't normal. I knew he was right. But I still didn't want to believe the man I'd once loved was becoming someone I no longer recognized. Then Ethan crossed a line. He somehow discovered where I worked. My supervisor called me into her office. Her expression looked uncomfortable. Evain? Someone called here claiming they're concerned about your mental health. My blood ran cold. I showed her the texts, the screenshots, everything. She looked horrified. Please tell me you're talking to the police. I wasn't. Not yet. That evening, Nathan sat beside me on the couch. You don't owe him access to your life anymore. His voice was calm, steady, safe. You need protection. For the first time, I admitted something aloud. I'm scared. He wrapped his arms around me. I know. 2 weeks later, things became even worse. An anonymous email was sent to Nathan's school. Someone claimed Nathan was dating a dangerous and unstable woman. The principal followed protocol. Fortunately, they knew Nathan well, but when he called me afterward, I could hear fear in his voice. Someone is trying to destroy our lives. That night, we gathered every piece of evidence, every text, every screenshot, every incident, and together, we went to the police station. The detective reviewed everything. His expression darkened. This is textbook harassment. We applied for an emergency protective order. Temporary approval came the same day. I thought we could finally breathe. I was wrong again. Because before Ethan could even be served with the order, something terrifying happened. Late that night, Nathan received a call from one of his neighbors. Someone had been sitting in a car outside his apartment for nearly an hour, watching, just watching. When police arrived, they discovered Ethan inside the vehicle. But what he said next would leave everyone confused. Because instead of begging to see me, he kept repeating one sentence over and over. She's watching me too. At the time, none of us understood what he meant. The officers questioned Ethan outside Nathan's apartment, while I stood beside one of the patrol cars, shaking from adrenaline. Nathan held my hand tightly. Even then, he was trying to calm me. Ethan looked exhausted. Not angry. Not violent. Terrified. One officer asked him why he was sitting outside the building. He kept rubbing his hands together. Then he said something none of us expected. She's watching me too. The officer frowned. Who? Ethan looked around nervously. Loren. I felt my stomach twist. For 6 months, I had convinced myself the story was simple. Boyfriend leaves, gets back together with ex, relationship fails, have regrets it, end of story. But the fear in his eyes didn't match that narrative. The police still arrested him because of the harassment and the pending protective order. As they placed him inside the vehicle, he looked at me one last time. I never wanted any of this. I didn't answer. At that point, I couldn't. I was too angry, too tired, too hurt. A week later, we appeared in court. Ethan's attorney tried to portray him as a heartbroken man who had made emotional mistakes, but our lawyer presented everything chronologically. The texts, the unwanted visits, the false reports, the harassment. The judge barely needed an hour. The court finds sufficient evidence of stalking and harassment. The protective order was granted. 2 years. As Ethan sat there, shoulders slumped, I suddenly remembered the man I'd once loved, and for a brief moment, beneath all my anger, I felt grief. Not victory. Grief. Nathan squeezed my hand. It's over, he whispered. I thought he was right. 3 peaceful months passed. 3 months without messages, without fear, without looking over my shoulder. Nathan and I grew closer. We started discussing moving in together. Life finally felt normal. Then my attorney called. Evain. Ethan's lawyer contacted me. Immediately my chest tightened. No. Listen first. Apparently, Ethan wanted one mediated meeting, 15 minutes. Lawyers present. Nothing more. I almost laughed. Absolutely not. Then my attorney continued. He claims he has information involving Lauren and an active criminal investigation. Nathan immediately shook his head. It's a trap. He wasn't wrong. But something bothered me. The fear I'd seen outside his car, the strange expression he'd worn when mentioning Lauren. Eventually, with both attorneys present, we agreed. The meeting took place in a conference room. When Ethan entered, I barely recognized him. He looked healthier, calmer, older, somehow. He sat down quietly. Thank you for coming. I said nothing. He took a deep breath. I'm not here to ask for another chance. Nathan sat beside me. Protective. Watchful. Ethan looked directly at him. I'm glad she has you. That alone surprised me. Then Ethan finally spoke. Lauren didn't simply come back into my life. He paused. She blackmailed me. My entire body froze. What? His hands trembled. Years ago, when we dated, she recorded intimate videos. When she moved back, she threatened to send them to my family, my workplace, everyone. The room became silent. I panicked. You left me because of videos, I asked. Tears filled his eyes. I was ashamed. He lowered his head. I thought if I gave her what she wanted, she'd eventually leave me alone. Then, why didn't you tell me? Because I was humiliated. His voice cracked. I didn't want you seeing me as weak. He explained everything. The social media posts, the sudden move, Lauren's controlling behavior, her constant threats. When she eventually left him for someone else, he collapsed emotionally. And then, he made the worst decisions of his life. Instead of seeking help, he became obsessed with reclaiming the relationship he'd destroyed. None of it excused what he had done. Not to me, not to Nathan. But suddenly, the picture looked different. His attorney slid a document across the table. It wasn't screenshots. It was a police report. Lauren was under investigation for blackmail and extortion. Ethan had filed it months earlier. There was more. Several other men had already come forward. I sat there speechless. Nathan remained calm. Finally, he spoke. What happened to you was terrible. Ethan nodded silently. Nathan continued. But what you did to Evelyn afterward was terrible too. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I know. For the first time since the nightmare began. Nobody argued. Nobody blamed. Nobody defended. There was only sadness. Pure sadness. Before leaving, Ethan handed our attorneys sealed letters. One addressed to me. One addressed to Nathan. Full apologies. No excuse. No request. No expectations. Just apologies. That was the last time I ever saw him. 2 months later, news broke. Lauren had been arrested. Investigators discovered multiple victims. The evidence against her was overwhelming. The woman I had once viewed as the reason my relationship ended turned out to be something far darker. Meanwhile, Ethan entered therapy. According to his attorney, he voluntarily extended the protective order to 5 years. He accepted responsibility, and he disappeared from our lives. Nathan and I eventually moved into a new apartment. A new beginning. A quieter life. One afternoon, months later, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan's mother at the grocery store. I braced myself, but she simply smiled sadly. He finally started healing. She told me, I'm glad. I answered honestly, because I was, not because I wanted him back, not because I had forgiven everything, but because, once upon a time, I had loved him, and despite everything, I never wanted him destroyed. She nodded. Sometimes, people have to hit rock bottom before they ask for help. Then she quietly walked away. Nathan found me a few minutes later. You okay? I smiled. Yeah. And surprisingly, I meant it. Because I finally understood something. Explanations are not excuses. Victims can become perpetrators. Love alone cannot save people. And closure doesn't come from one conversation. It comes from distance, time, peace, Nathan and I are building a stable life now. Not perfect. Not dramatic. Just healthy. And after everything that happened, healthy feels extraordinary. The past remains in the past. And that's exactly where it belongs.